So welcome to this short video. My name's Alex and thank you for watching this video and for appreciating some of the other videos that I've been making. And I understand that the subject matter is rather heavy and rather dark, and that's because a lot of very serious and unpleasant things are happening, especially in the realm of the media, which is in the process of pouring out as much negative and pessimistic and dark information as it possibly can into the minds of millions of people, and it's focusing on children and pouring dark information into the minds of children via the pop music industry, via TV programs, via films, books, video games, and any other avenue of media that you can think of. Now, I'm not a serious person. Generally speaking, I'm a very positive and humorous and joyful person. And if you can just ask my children and they'll tell you that I'm a bit of a fool. I like to make them laugh and I like to be silly because I believe life is meant to be a joyful experience. And I just found this Christmas card here lying around a few days ago, and I like it a lot. It reminds all of us that life is about joy. Now, because there is a satanic influence in the world and in the media, then this influence is trying to take us away from joy and make people believe that life is dark, life is heavy, life is bleak, and all these things. Life is miserable and we should be afraid. And all this strong pull that the media is creating towards fear and darkness, misery, is taking us away from our innate joy. Because God wants us to be joyful. God wants us to experience joy and have joy in our hearts. Because that's God's gift to us. Knowing God is a very joyful experience. Knowing God's safety and His security and His love and His forgiveness. Knowing God is the most joyful experience that we can have. And the satanic agenda in the media is to take us away from God by taking us away from joy, by taking us away from love, by taking us away from peace and security, and taking us into this realm of fear, pessimism, darkness, and misery. So I think it's important, I want to say it's very important every single day, or several times a day, to remember joy. Remember the joy, the capacity for joy that God's put into our hearts. And so I think it's important every day to remind yourself, every morning and every evening perhaps, remind yourself of the joy that God has put into your heart. Go into nature, breathe deeply, run, walk, sing to yourself, sing out loud, put some beautiful music on and dance. Really remember that you have the capacity for joy. God has given you the capacity for joy, and you can awaken that joy very, very quickly. It's very important to stop watching negative things and things which inspire pessimism, which so much of the media is doing right now, and things that inspire heaviness and misery and fear, because we're really making life very difficult for ourselves. We can be joyful amidst all of the things which are seemingly happening on the planet. We can be joyful, and this joy is the best antidote to the fear and pessimism that the media is pouring out on a daily basis and spreading around the world. Fear and pessimism is the disease. Of course, everyone's talking about the coronavirus and the speed at which it's spreading, but the ultimate disease is fear, because it poisons our heart and it takes us away from God. So Satan is pouring fear into society through the media for the very purpose of taking us away from God, or trying to pull us away from God. Because God is trying to draw us close to Him so we can experience His security, experience His peace, and know His love. And Satan doesn't want this. Satan wants us in fear and in terror. So you could see fear as the opposite to love, and at the extreme of fear is terror. So this is why a lot of horror movies try to terrify people because it takes them to the extreme of fear. And that's when we get as far away from God as possible, in terror. But the opposite of that terror, the opposite extreme, is joy. So we have God's love, and then the kind of peak of God's love is the joy He fills our hearts with. And when we're experiencing deep joy, then we know there is total fulfillment, and we know it's the greatest thing that our heart is capable of, that we're capable of. It's almost like we're built for joy. God has built us for joy. And when we just remember this on a daily basis, if we remind ourselves on a daily basis that we are built for joy, then this is the antidote to fear. This kind of washes away this heaviness, this darkness, this seriousness, and this pessimism that gets into our heart. Joy washes that away. It purifies our heart and washes our heart clean and fills it with God's light. So I just wanted to remind you of the importance of joy, and that life is joyful, that God is joyful. Knowing God, we can be joyful. And it's important that we remind ourselves of the experience of joy. So we're remembering the depth and beauty of God when we remember joy. So I just want to thank you again for your appreciation of the videos I'm making, and just to remind you that life is about joy and God is about joy. And we have to shine the light, or I have to shine the light and be given the job of shining the light on the dark things that are happening in the world, and the dark messages specifically which are being put into the media. Because they're trying to take us away from joy. These messages are trying to take our minds away from God, away from God's security, away from God's peace and His love and His joy. And all we need to do is remember that the joy is real and the fear is not. God's love is real, and the fear that Satan creates in our mind is not. That's why he has to use the media. That's why he has to generate all these images and generate these negative and dark kind of scenarios in our mind. That's why he has to use our thoughts, so that we conjure up these negative scenarios in our mind. He has to use those things to create fear, because fear isn't real. It has to be manipulated and generated through these techniques, and this is what Satan does. Satan generates fear through deception, through lies and deception. Without lies and deception, then Satan cannot generate fear in our mind. So it's really important to understand that when there is fear for our safety, and fear about the future, then that's the result of a deception in our mind, a misunderstanding in our mind about reality. Because God is reality.